The mining vessel Helios drifted silently through the asteroid belt of Proxima Centauri, its worn hull reflecting the distant starlight. In the ship's engineering bay, Zara Patel wiped the sweat from her brow, her dark eyes fixed on the malfunctioning plasma converter. 6 months into what should have been a routine mining operation, and everything that could go wrong had gone wrong. Engineering, status report, Captain Torres's voice crackled through the comm system. Still working on it, Cap, Zara replied, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. The converter's acting like it's possessed. Never seen anything like it. The ship shuddered, and Zara steadied herself against the bulkhead. The asteroid belt was getting denser, and without the plasma converter functioning properly, their shields were operating at minimal capacity. One wrong hit could crack the hull like an egg. "We've got movement," Torres announced, tension evident in his voice. "Something big just appeared on our scans." Zara froze. In deep space, something big usually meant trouble. She grabbed her tablet and pulled up the sensor readings. The object was massive, at least 3 times the size of the Helios, and it was moving against the asteroid belt's natural flow. "That's impossible," she muttered. The object's energy signature was unlike anything in their database. It pulsed with a rhythmic pattern that seemed almost alive. The ship's emergency lights flashed red, and artificial gravity flickered. Zara magnetized her boots just as the Helios lurched violently to port. Through the viewport, she caught a glimpse of it, a crystalline structure that seemed to bend light around itself, its surface rippling like liquid metal. "All hands, brace for impact," Torres shouted. But impact never came. Instead, a beam of purple energy lanced out from the alien structure, enveloping the Helios in a shimmering field. Zara's tablet exploded in a shower of sparks, and every system in engineering went dark. Then she heard it, a voice that wasn't a voice, a presence that filled her mind like water filling a glass. "Candidate located. Integration protocol initiated." Pain erupted behind Zara's eyes as information flooded her consciousness. Images, concepts, and memories that weren't her own cascaded through her mind. She saw vast fleets of crystalline ships, worlds burning, and a darkness spreading between the stars like ink in water. "The Nexus comes," the voice said. "You have been chosen." When Zara regained consciousness, she was floating in the engineering bay. The emergency lights cast everything in a bloody glow, and warning klaxons wailed in the distance. But something was different. She could feel the ship around her, not just with her senses, but with something else, something new. She raised her hand, and streams of purple energy danced between her fingers. Knowledge she couldn't possibly have possessed filled her mind, the location of every Nexus outpost in this sector, the weaknesses in their biomechanical ships, the terrible truth about their plans for humanity. "Zara." Torres's voice cut through her revelation. "Engineering's not responding. Are you alive down there?" She opened her mouth to respond but stopped when she saw her reflection in a darkened display panel. Her eyes glowed with the same purple energy that now coursed through her veins. The artifact hadn't just scanned her, it had changed her, prepared her. "I'm here, Cap," she finally responded, her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands. "But we've got a problem. The Nexus is coming, and they're not here to make friends." As if in response to her words, the ship's long-range sensors began screaming. Multiple contacts were emerging from Fold space, the first wave of a Nexus invasion fleet. Humanity had never faced anything like them before, had no way to fight their advanced technology. No way except for her. Zara closed her eyes and felt the artifact's power humming through her body. She didn't ask for this, didn't want to be humanity's last line of defense. But as the Nexus ships approached and the fate of her species hung in the balance, she realized it didn't matter what she wanted. What mattered was what she was going to do about it. "Captain," she said, watching the purple energy coalescence around her hands, "I need you to trust me. And I need you to get me as close to those ships as possible." The battle for humanity's survival was about to begin, and Zara Patel, mining engineer turned reluctant warrior, was all that stood between her species and extinction. The Helios's bridge was silent except for the steady beep of proximity warnings. Through the main viewport, Zara watched the Nexus ships approach, 5 biomechanical monstrosities that moved with unsettling grace through the asteroid field. "You're telling me," Captain Torres said, his weathered face illuminated by warning lights, "that some alien artifact merged with you, and now you can fight those things?" He gestured at the incoming fleet. Zara flexed her fingers, purple energy crackling between them. "Honestly, Cap, I don't know what I can do. But I know what happens if we don't try." The artifact's knowledge pulsed in her mind, images of worlds reduced to barren husks, entire civilizations processed and absorbed into the Nexus collective. They weren't conquerors, they were harvesters. "Multiple weapon signatures detected," Rodriguez announced from tactical. "They're charging up. Evasive maneuvers," Torres ordered, but Zara stepped forward. "No," she said, placing her hand on the viewport. "Hold position." The first Nexus blast, a beam of sickly green energy, streaked toward the Helios. Zara felt the artifact's power surge through her body, and she reached out with her mind. A shield of purple energy materialized around the ship, deflecting the blast into a nearby asteroid. "Holy shit," someone whispered. But Zara wasn't done. She could feel the Nexus ships now, could sense the bizarre hybrid of organic and mechanical systems that powered them. More importantly, she could feel their weaknesses. "I need to get outside," she said, already moving toward the airlock. Torres caught her arm. "That's suicide. Even with, whatever this is, you can't." "Captain," she cut him off, her purple eyes meeting his, "I'm not asking permission." The space around the Helios was chaos. Nexus weapons fire crisscrossed the void, turning asteroids into molten debris. Zara floated in the middle of it all, protected only by a bubble of purple energy. The artifact's power flowed through her, transforming her mining engineer's understanding of physics and energy into something else, something deadly. The nearest Nexus ship fired again. This time, instead of deflecting the blast, Zara caught it. The green energy swirled around her like water in a whirlpool before she redirected it back at its source. The blast punched through the ship's biomechanical hull, and the vessel writhed like a wounded animal. But the other ships were learning, adapting their attack patterns. They spread out, trying to flank her. Zara felt sweat beading on her forehead inside her helmet. The artifact's power might be incredible, but her human body still had limits. "Zara." Torres's voice crackled through her calm, 3 more Nexus ships just dropped out of fold space behind us. She spun around, seeing the new threats emerge like dark stars against the void. 8 against 1. The odds were impossible, but then again, everything about this situation was impossible. Zara reached deeper into the artifact's power, letting it fill every cell of her body. Information flooded her mind, combat techniques from 1,000 dead civilizations, strategies used against the Nexus in countless battles. But there was something else too, something the artifact had been holding back. "The Nexus can be beaten," the same not voice from earlier whispered in her mind. "But the price is high." "Tell me," Zara thought back, watching as the Nexus ships moved to encircle her. "Full integration. Surrender your humanity, become the weapon you were chosen to be." Zara thought of Earth, of the billions of people who had no idea what was coming. She thought of her family, her friends, all the simple dreams she'd had before this moment. The choice was impossible, but it was hers to make. "Do it," she commanded. The transformation was agony and ecstasy combined. Purple energy erupted from her body in waves, and her consciousness expanded beyond human limits. She could see the quantum strings that held reality together, could feel the pulse of spacetime itself. The Nexus ships opened fire simultaneously, their combined firepower enough to vaporize a small moon. Zara raised her hands, and reality bent. The energy beams twisted in impossible ways, coiling around her like obedient serpents before she sent them screaming back at their sources. 3 Nexus ships died in the first second. 2 more in the next. The remaining vessels tried to retreat, their biomechanical systems screaming in frequencies only Zara could now hear. But it was too late. When it was over, the space around the Helios was littered with the twisted remains of Nexus ships. Zara floated in the center of the destruction, her body glowing like a purple star. She could feel the changes within her, she wasn't fully human anymore, might never be again. Zara? Torres's voice seemed to come from a great distance. Are you still you? She opened her eyes, seeing the universe in colors that had no names. I'm what I need to be, Captain. But this was just the beginning. The Nexus will send more ships, bigger ships. They'll never stop until Earth is dead or I am. Then what's the plan? Zara turned toward the distant stars, toward the darkness where the Nexus waited. We find others like me, other candidates the artifact can transform. We build an army. And then we take the fight to them. As if in response to her words, a new signal appeared at the edge of her enhanced senses, another artifact, waiting to be found. Another candidate ready to be transformed. The war for humanity's survival had begun, and Zara Patel, once a simple mining engineer, would lead the charge into darkness. Would you like me to continue with Part 3, where Zara begins her search for other candidates and discovers the true extent of the Nexus threat? The colony of New Eden was hardly paradise. Built into the side of a massive crater on Mars' southern hemisphere, its biodomes gleamed dully under the rust-colored sky. Zara stood in the observation deck, her purple eyes reflecting off the reinforced glass as she scanned the horizon. Another artifact signal? Dr. Ravi Sharma asked, looking up from his data terminal. The Indian xenoarchaeologist had been studying the fragments of Nexus technology they'd recovered, trying to understand the enemy they faced. Stronger this time, Zara replied, the alien energy coursing through her veins pulsing in response. Somewhere in the Valles Marineris. 3 months had passed since her transformation, and the war wasn't going well. The Nexus attacks had intensified, targeting remote colonies and mining outposts. Earth's governments were still arguing about how to respond, refusing to believe the true scale of the threat. The door hissed open, and Commander James O'Neill entered, his prosthetic leg whirring softly. He'd lost the original in their last encounter with a Nexus harvester ship. The councils made their decision, he announced. They're not sending support. Zara wasn't surprised. They still think we can negotiate. They think you're as much of a threat as the Nexus. O'Neill's face hardened. After what happened at Titan Base, they're not entirely wrong. The memory hit Zara like a physical blow. She'd found another candidate there, a young technician named Devon. But something had gone wrong during the transformation. The artifact's power had overwhelmed him, turning him into something monstrous. She'd been forced to. We learned from that, Dr. Sharma interjected, sensing her distress. The artifacts don't choose randomly. They need specific genetic markers, certain neural patterns. Devon wasn't compatible. And this new signal? O'Neill asked. You're sure it's different? Before Zara could answer, the colony's alarms began screaming. Red emergency lights bathed the observation deck, and the ground trembled beneath their feet. Multiple Nexus signatures detected, a voice announced over the comm system. They're coming up from underground. Zara's enhanced senses exploded with information. The Nexus hadn't just found them, they'd been here all along, burrowing beneath the Martian surface, waiting. They're not after the colony, she realized, horror dawning. They're after the artifact. They knew it was here. The floor buckled as something massive erupted from below. Through the observation window, Zara watched a Nexus world breaker emerge from the red soil, a towering monstrosity of living metal and crystalline organs. Its segmented body rose hundreds of meters into the sky, blocking out the sun. "Evacuate the colony," Zara ordered, purple energy already gathering around her hands. "Get everyone to the emergency shelters." "You can't fight that thing alone," O'Neill protested. "I'm not alone." Zara closed her eyes, reaching out with her enhanced consciousness. The artifact signal was stronger now, resonating with her own power. "The one in Vies Marineris, it's awakening. It knows its sister is in danger." The Worldbreaker's surface rippled, and dozens of smaller Nexus drones detached from its hull, swarming toward the colony. Zara raised her hands, creating a dome of purple energy over the main structures. "Dr. Sharma," she said, her voice tight with concentration, "remember what you theorized about the artifacts being connected? About them sharing some kind of network?" The xenoarchaeologist's eyes widened. "Yes, but the power requirements to activate such a network would be exactly what a Worldbreaker provides." Zara turned to O'Neill. "I need you to buy me time. 20 minutes at most." The commander nodded, already activating the colony's defense systems. "What are you going to do?" "Something incredibly stupid." Zara's form began to glow brighter, purple energy streaming off her like solar flares. "I'm going to let it think it's winning." The next 15 minutes were chaos. O'Neill coordinated the defense of the colony, his automated turrets and drone squadrons engaging the Nexus swarm. Dr. Sharma worked frantically at his terminal, monitoring the energy readings as Zara floated above the battlefield. The Worldbreaker attacked with weapons that defied physics, beams that altered probability, waves that accelerated entropy. Zara caught them all, letting each blast push her back, making a show of weakening. "Whatever you're planning," O'Neill shouted through the comm, "do it fast. We're losing ground." Zara didn't respond. Her consciousness was stretched to its limit, reaching across the Martian surface, touching the sleeping artifact in Vies Marineris. She could feel its power, different from her own but compatible. All it needed was a spark. The Worldbreaker loomed over her, its crystalline core pulsing with impossible energy. A final weapon emerged from its center, a lance of pure entropy that would reduce her to her component atoms. "Now," Zara whispered. As the Worldbreaker fired, she dropped her defenses completely. The entropy lance struck her directly, and for a moment, she ceased to exist in normal space. But that was exactly what she needed. Her consciousness, freed from physical constraints, rode the energy beam back to its source. She plunged into the Worldbreaker's core, into the heart of its power. And there, in that moment of connection, she sent out a pulse of her own. The artifact in Vies Marineris answered. A pillar of purple light erupted from the massive canyon, visible even from orbit. The Worldbreaker screamed in frequencies that shattered windows across the colony as the artifact's power surged through its systems, using them as a conduit. Zara reformed above the battlefield, her body blazing with combined power of both artifacts. The Worldbreaker tried to retreat, but she held it in place with forces that hadn't been seen since the birth of the universe. "You wanted the artifacts," she said, her voice echoing across Mars' thin atmosphere. "Here they are." The destruction of the Worldbreaker created a new crater on Mars' surface. When the dust settled, Zara landed softly beside O'Neill and Dr. Sharma, her glow dimming but not disappearing entirely. "The artifact network," Dr. Sharma said, checking his readings. "You didn't just activate it. You proved it exists. Do you know what this means?" Zara nodded, looking toward the horizon where the second artifact waited. "It means we're not fighting alone anymore. Every artifact we wake up strengthens the others." She turned to O'Neill. "And it means I know where to find the rest of them." "The Council won't like that," the commander warned. "The Council doesn't have a choice." Zara's eyes flared. "Because now we know something else, the Nexus isn't just afraid of the artifacts. They're afraid of what happens when they work together." As if in response, she felt new signals at the edge of her consciousness. More artifacts, waiting to be found. More candidates, waiting to be transformed. The real war was about to begin. The ancient lunar facility stretched for kilometers beneath the moon's surface, its alien architecture untouched for millions of years. Zara walked through corridors that thrummed with dormant power, Dr. Sharma and O'Neill following close behind. Their footsteps echoed in chambers that hadn't known sound since before humanity's ancestors walked upright. These aren't just ruins, Dr. Sharma breathed, his handheld scanner whirring. This is a command center. The artifacts, they were coordinated from here. Zara placed her hand on a crystalline wall, purple energy flowing from her fingers. The facility responded, holographic displays flickering to life around them, showing star maps and tactical data in languages that hadn't been spoken since Earth was young. Someone's been here before us, O'Neill noted, pointing to more recent marks on the walls, signs of forced entry, scorch marks from energy weapons. Nexus? No, Zara said, the artifact's knowledge filling in the gaps. Someone else. Human. They found the evidence in the central chamber, a makeshift research station, abandoned but relatively recent. Papers scattered across alien consoles, empty food containers, and a journal. Zara picked it up, her enhanced mind translating the handwritten notes instantly. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, she read aloud. She found this place 3 years ago. She was getting close to understanding what the artifacts really are, and why the Nexus fears them. Was? O'Neill asked, checking his weapon. Before Zara could answer, a new presence touched her consciousness, familiar yet different. She spun around as a figure emerged from the shadows. Dr. Elena Rodriguez looked exactly like her photo in the journal, except for her eyes. They glowed with the same purple energy as Zara's. I wondered when you'd find this place, Elena said, her voice carrying harmonics that only Zara could hear. We have a lot to talk about. You're like me, Zara said. But your signal, it's different. Because I wasn't chosen by an artifact. Elena's form flickered like a bad transmission. I found another way. And what I discovered, it changes everything we thought we knew about this war. The chamber's holographic displays surged to life, showing images that made Dr. Sharma gasp and O'Neill curse. The Nexus wasn't just an alien invasion force, they were running from something. Something worse. The artifacts weren't left here to protect us, Elena explained, her form becoming more solid. They were left here to hide from what's coming. The Nexus is just the first wave. They're the refugees of a war that's been raging across the galaxy for millions of years. Zara felt the truth in Elena's words, felt her own artifact responding. What are they running from? Before Elena could answer, the facility's ancient alarms screamed to life. Through her enhanced senses, Zara felt them, dozens of Nexus ships, bigger than anything they'd encountered before, dropping out of fold space above the lunar surface. They followed you, Elena said, but there was no accusation in her voice. Good. We need them here for what comes next. Which is what? O'Neill demanded. Elena walked to the central console, her purple energy merging with the facility's systems. The artifacts have been gathering power for millions of years, building a network that spans the galaxy. But they need something to activate it fully. Something only the Nexus can provide. The core of a Nexus world breaker, Zara realized. Like what happened on Mars, but bigger. Much bigger. Elena's form began to fade. I can't maintain this form much longer. The process I used, it's killing me. But before I go, you need to understand. The artifacts aren't weapons, Zara. They're keys. And what they unlock. The facility shuddered as the first Nexus weapons struck the lunar surface. Elena's form flickered one last time, and she pressed something into Zara's hand, a small crystal that pulsed with familiar energy. Find the others, Elena whispered as she faded away. Wake them up. And remember, when you see what's on the other side, don't look away. It's the only chance any of us have. The crystal in Zara's hand contained coordinates, locations of other facilities like this one, other artifacts waiting to be awakened. But it also held something else, something that made her enhanced mind real. The truth about what waited beyond the network. The real reason the artifacts had chosen humanity. "We need to move," O'Neill said, checking his tactical display. "Those Nexus ships are deploying ground forces. Looks like they brought an army." Zara closed her eyes, feeling the facility's power flowing through her, merging with her own. When she opened them, the purple glow had intensified, and the ancient machines around them hummed with awakening energy. "Good," she said. "Because it's time they learned what happens when you corner something with nothing left to lose." Above them, the Nexus army descended. But this time, Zara wasn't just fighting for survival. She was fighting for answers. And somewhere out there, beyond the edge of known space, something was waiting, something that had sent both the artifacts and the Nexus fleeing across the galaxy. The final battle was approaching, but it wasn't the one anyone had expected. The Earth hung like a blue jewel in the void, seemingly peaceful from orbit. But Zara could see the truth through her enhanced vision, Nexus ships emerging from fold space by the hundreds, darkening the skies over every major city. The evacuation orders had come too late. In the command center of the lunar facility, Dr. Sharma worked frantically at the ancient consoles while O'Neill coordinated what remained of Earth's defense forces through encrypted channels. The crystal Elena had given them pulsed with increasing urgency in Zara's hand. "The artifact network is ready," Dr. Sharma announced, his face illuminated by holographic displays. "But the power requirements, we'd need at least 3 world breaker cores to activate it fully." "They brought 5, Zara said, watching the massive Nexus vessels take position around Earth. Her consciousness stretched out, touching the minds of other artifact bearers, the few candidates they'd managed to find and transform. There were only 7 of them now, after losing 3 in the Battle of Europa. "This is suicide," O'Neill said, but he was already checking his weapons. "Even with the facility's defenses, we can't take on 5 world breakers. We don't have to beat them." Zara projected Elena's data into the air between them. "We just have to make them angry enough to use their cores at full power. All of them, at once." Understanding dawned on Dr. Sharma's face. "The feedback loop, you're going to turn their own energy against them, just like on Mars. But bigger." Zara's eyes flared. "Much bigger." The plan was insane, but then again, sanity had left the building when the first artifact had chosen her. The other bearers were already in position, scattered across Earth's surface. Each one would serve as a focal point, drawing the Worldbreaker's fire. "Last transmission from Earth Command," O'Neill reported grimly. "The Nexus is deploying ground forces. They're not just invading this time, they're running. Whatever's chasing them, it's here." As if in response, space itself seemed to shudder. The facility's sensors screamed as something massive began to emerge from the darkness beyond Pluto's orbit. It defied description, a tear in reality that swallowed light itself. "That's what the artifacts were built to fight," Zara said, the knowledge flooding her mind. "That's what the Nexus is running from. The void itself." The Nexus world breakers reacted immediately, turning their weapons toward the approaching anomaly. But Zara could feel their fear, their desperation. They knew what was coming. "Now," she commanded. Across the Earth, the other artifact bearers released their power simultaneously. Purple energy lanced up from 7 points on the planet's surface, creating a geometric pattern that even the void seemed to notice. The world breakers responded exactly as planned, with overwhelming force. Their cores pulsed with apocalyptic energy, firing everything they had at both the artifact bearers and the approaching void. Zara stood in the center of the lunar facility's main chamber, becoming a conduit for powers that could reshape reality. Through her connection to the artifact network, she felt every bearer's pain and determination. They were the last line of defense, not just for humanity, but for all life in the galaxy. The network is at critical mass. Dr. Sharma shouted over the facility's groaning structure. Whatever you're going to do, do it now. Zara raised her hands, and the universe held its breath. In that moment, she understood everything. The artifacts weren't weapons, they were pieces of a lock. And what they kept contained was neither good nor evil, but something far beyond such concepts. The void wasn't destroying reality, it was trying to reclaim it. With a thought, she connected the patterns. The Worldbreaker's energy, the artifact's network, the approaching void, all of it flowing through her, through the other bearers, through the very fabric of spacetime. Reality cracked. Then reformed. When Zara opened her eyes, the void was gone. But so were the Worldbreakers, and the entire Nexus fleet. The artifact network pulsed once, twice, and went silent. What did you do? O'Neill asked, helping Dr. Sharma to his feet. What the artifacts were designed to do, Zara replied, watching purple energy dance across her skin. They weren't meant to fight the void. They were meant to heal it. The Nexus didn't understand. They thought running would save them, but they were just making it worse. And now? Zara turned to look at Earth, still blue, still beautiful. The other bearers were alive, she could feel them, changed but unbroken. Now we rebuild. And we prepare. Prepare for what? Dr. Sharma asked. For what comes next? Zara smiled, and for the first time since touching the first artifact, she felt truly at peace. The void will return. It always does. But next time, we'll be ready. Because that's what the artifacts chose us for. Not to fight, not to run, but to understand. To heal. To grow. The crystal in her hand had gone dark, its purpose fulfilled. But Zara knew there would be more artifacts, more candidates. The war wasn't over, it had just changed. And humanity, with all its flaws and strengths, would face it together. In the depths of space, purple energy still flickered between the stars, a network waiting to be reborn. And somewhere, in the darkness beyond reality, the void waited too. Not as an enemy, but as a reminder of what they might become. The end was just another beginning. The story concludes with humanity transformed but not defeated, having found its place in a cosmic cycle of destruction and renewal. Zara and her fellow artifact bearers stand ready to face whatever comes next, having learned that the greatest battles aren't won through force, but through understanding and growth.